Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Sunday, August 10th, 2025, and Wales, over in England, is reporting that they're going to increase the speed limit on roadways from 20 miles an hour back up to 30 miles an hour due to public backlash. So it's an interesting situation where I live, and I think where a lot of people live right now across Ontario, across Canada. The local governments are bringing in ordinances and city council votes and things like that to reduce the speed limit in all across the city. And it's gotten so bad that even rural lines I've seen at 40 kilometers an hour where they used to be 70 kilometers an hour, and people are still driving 70 kilometers an hour on these roadways. And they're ignoring it because they think that they can continue to ignore it. But soon they're going to have speed cameras, and then the speed cameras are going to be a $25,000 fine for the public good, comrade, right? And so, or if you tamper with the speed cameras, right, as the Blade Runners do in England, then you're going to be hunted down for mischief. And that mischief charge carries a 20-year sentence. Never mind, speed cameras are for the public good. How dare you? And so I am very, very concerned about that. And I'm happy that Wales is having some success at turning this back. So we'll see how that all plays out here. Maybe it'll have to get worse before it gets better, maybe. More trade news with increase to softwood lumber tariff and more deals signed. So Alberta and I can't remember the other place, but Alberta and somewhere signed a deal to increase or reduce interprovincial trade barriers. But all of that seems, we don't usually get a lot of details about what it is. And percentage wise, like, is this really opening big swaths of the economy up, or are we just melting ice in a glass water in a drink? You know what I mean? It's not going to increase the volume at all. It's just going to stay at the same level. I fear that's what we're doing. But everybody's behaving as if Mark Carney's the smartest guy in the room, and I just don't believe it. New Brunswick joins Nova Scotia in banning people from walking in the woods. Newfoundland has a fire ban and 6 months in jail for violation of the fire ban. And if only they took forestry management or real crime this seriously. Like, imagine the place that we might live, right? But instead, they want to criminalize regular people and use the excuse for your safety, comrade, and we're all supposed to just take it and not question it. And if you question it, you're a bad guy. And I think, wow, we've really, really gone round the bend now. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're starting in Nova Scotia with Jeff Evely. And he says, I tried to tell Nova Scotia last time they went full commie with the 2023 woods ban. I filed an application for judicial review, citing my constitutional rights. The Crown argued that my case was moot because the ban had been lifted by the time my case made it to court. The court ruled that I did not have standing on my rights alone. There had to be money involved, like a fine. So Jeff is now charged with entering the woods. And he says, one of the other things he said in 2023, how are we supposed to catch the arsonists if we can't go into the woods? Which I was concerned about as well. Sure, if climate isn't causing fires, human activity is maybe causing fires, and banning people from going into the woods, that only works for people who listen to the law. Criminals tend to not listen to the law, and people who are motivated by, wanting to light fires, arsonists, and they think they're doing things for the greater good. We're lighting this fire to show how bad climate change is, and so people will take it seriously and will get our way politically, basically. And they think they're doing it for a noble reason, and so they feel like they're justified in breaking this law. In fact, breaking this law is necessary in order to, get our point across and things like that. But regular people don't get told any of those things. And they think these fires are climate-based, but they're not. And they're arson. And if the arsonists don't have to worry about having a hiker, happen upon them, then they can operate with impunity. And that's weird, right? Like that's a really strange thing to, unintended consequence, maybe, but maybe it's a completely intended consequence. And why would they do that? Why would they allow these people to have carte blanche to be arsonists in dry woods? Here are Nova Scotians fighting back against this whole thing. Here's the first guy, and again, Jeff Evely is saying Nova Scotians have had enough, and here's this guy, he's walking in the woods.
So just out here having a little stroll in the bush. I hear a lot of Nova Scotians are doing the same. Houston, you have a problem.
That was almost the name of the show today, but oh well. Here is another guy walking in the woods. Table Salt says Nova Scotians are defying Houston's being a nature ban, and authorities are reportedly unable to respond to all of the reports.
And for walking on this beautiful trail, we don't smoke. We're not going to light a fire. I don't think really anybody else is going to do that either who is a decent citizen. So I think it's bullshit that the government is trying to stop people from walking in the forest. Hey kids, what are we? Free! That's right, we're free.
There you go. People are pushing back against all of this. They don't like it, and they're teaching their kids to not tolerate this. And that is necessary to teach your kids. This is how you respond to tyranny. This is the only way to respond to tyranny. Go poke them in the eye. Here is Marty, and this is 3 minutes from the Justice Center, and he is a lawyer with the Justice Center, and he's talking about Nova Scotia's woods ban. And this is the opinion of a constitutional lawyer, but as with everything, take it with a grain of salt, right? Just because a lawyer maybe agrees with you doesn't mean it is the absolute word. But at the same time, I think common sense should prevail, although there are people out there. I had a discussion with somebody this morning talking about how the 6 months in jail for violating the fire ban is totally justified, and anybody who's stupid enough deserves that time in prison. And I can't get around, like, why aren't we doing any forestry management? The only way to do this is to treat everybody like criminals? I don't think so. Here we go.
The Nova Scotia order banning people from the woods is bad and probably worse than you think. It's really a climate change power grab. The legislation enabling this kind of order is expressly premised on the idea of fighting forest fires in a changing climate. This climate change power grab is coming from a province with plenty of experience in tyranny during COVID, where it fired unvaccinated judges, resulting in pedophile charges being dropped, where it banned people from gathering along highways to show support for the Freedom Convoy, and where it recently actually passed a law allowing the Minister of Health to access everyone's private medical files. This order banning people from the woods is very broad. It applies even to private property. The order itself states that entry into the woods for purposes of traveling, camping, fishing, or picnicking, or any other purpose without a valid travel permit in all counties in Nova Scotia is prohibited. And so this kind of broad language, while some of the statements from the government indicate that they might not prosecute people doing other kinds of activities, even on their own property, is incredibly broad. There's obviously constitutional concerns. You can't go for a walk in the woods. In 1994, the Supreme Court of Canada held that to ban the loitering around playgrounds of people convicted of serious offenses, including crimes against children, that was an unconstitutional violation of people's liberty interests. How much more when people are banned from walking in their own woods or walking in the public woods of the province of Nova Scotia? Is that not a violation of your right to roam, your liberty interest protected under the Canadian Constitution, Section 7 of the Charter? We think it is.
And yeah, I think that's a good argument. And I'm not arguing for people to be able to go and make fires in the woods. That's not it. That's not the point, right? And that's not what the ordinance fights. That's not what this whole thing is about. It's about control. And that's unfortunate. Here's Greg, and he's asking conservatives, what's going on, conservatives?
Are conservatives in Canada
It's been one day since somebody's been talking too fast. Here we go.
doing okay right now? The Premier of Nova Scotia is a progressive conservative, and he just said, don't go in the woods or else we're going to fine you $25,000. This is the conservative acting like some sort of eco-fascist. The conservative, the progressive conservative is doing this. By the way, haven't heard anyone from the Polyev camp or the CPC camp condemning this outrageous policy, by the way. Conservative Party, federal Conservative Party. And then you have Danielle Smith in Alberta, the most conservative province, the most conservative premier. Do you know who she just nominated or chose to be the provincial police chief? The first provincial police force is run by this guy named Sat Singh Parhar. Sat Singh Parhar is your police chief of Alberta. Albertans, hey.
So there you go. And Yeah, I've got more on the burn bans and things like that. But Greg is pushing back and saying, where's the federal conservatives? Where are other conservative premiers saying this is a bad idea? Instead, we've just got contagion. Here's JB saying climate lockdowns in Canada are now here. A second Canadian province has gone full North Korea, New Brunswick. Woodlands in Nova Scotia, and now New Brunswick, the combined size of North Carolina, is banned to the public. So that's pretty interesting, right? She says Donald Trump must annex Canada now. I don't know if that'll work. Canadians are still pretty high on their horse. Melissa says, wow, New Brunswick now joining in and banning activities in the woods effective at midnight. Trails on Crown lands will close to things like hiking, camping, and fishing. Canada is imposing climate lockdowns. So people aren't happy with this. And this is, I don't know which newspaper this is, but the newspaper headline says, New Brunswick bans woods activity on Crown land due to unprecedented dry conditions. So there you go. It's very dry, so you can't come in. You can't come in here right now. It's very wet. You can't come in here right now. It's very cold. You can't come in here right now. Petrified COVID parent says a second Canadian province has closed nature and ordered citizens to stay out of the woods until it's safe for everyone. It'll probably just be 2 weeks of climate lockdowns to flatten the wildfires. So good job, petrified COVID parent. And this is government asks New Brunswickers to stay out of the woods across the province. And not to be undone, the John Hogan of Newfoundland weighs in as well. Mr. Sunshine Baby says that's effed. And the premier has announced a 6-month prison sentence to anyone who breaks the fire ban in place. So 6 months in jail. And I say again, I feel like we could do forestry management if we took seriously the responsibility of making the woods a place where fires don't happen regularly unless they're controlled backburns that are predictable and planned and so on and so forth. It's just, why don't they do that? They don't do that, and yet they criminalize people doing regular things. Now, this is a burn ban, fire ban. So, okay, that's fair. If it's very, very dry, I've refrained from making a camping fire at times because that seems like the right thing to do. You don't want to unintentionally contribute to the problem, right? But 6 months in jail, right? That's the sticker for me. Like, there's no other way to do this. You've got to throw people in jail. Who's going to get thrown in jail, right? It's going to be the guy walking down the path with his kids saying freedom. Like, it's not going to be the criminals, unfortunately. Here's the Premier of Newfoundland.
So as we said, we have taken decisive action to help address this situation. Yesterday, we announced we would increase fines for violating the forest fire regulations. And as I said today, we'll share the details. So effective today, new fines will range from $50,000 to $150,000. For a first offense, when a ticket is issued, fines will increase from $75 to $50,000. And imprisonment in default of payment will increase from 3 days to up to 6 months. For a subsequent offense, fines will increase from $150 to $75,000. Imprisonment for not paying will increase from 6 days to up to 6 months. Where there's a summons issued, a first offense fines will increase from $500 to $50,000 to $100,000 range, and imprisonment will increase from up to 3 months to up to 1 year.
Should we be doing this during a crisis? And I'm concerned that they're going to say you did this, and now you've got a $75,000 fine and 6 months in prison, and where previously it was 6 days in prison for, you know what I'm saying? That seems like a huge, huge increase. And if you're emotional, should you make choices at that point in time? If you look at the laws and say, yes, I'm feeling very emotional today because, look at this fire crisis we've got going on. We have to change that from 1 day or from 6 days to 6 months. You know what I mean? That seems heavy-handed. That seems out of touch with the reality of the situation. So if it was a problem, and I guess it wasn't up until now, you would think that the fines would be bigger, but they're not that big. So now we're having these huge increases. And again, I worry that they would be misused. The power of putting people in jail for burning things is going to be misused to target political adversaries or something to that effect. So I don't know. It's a very concerning thing when you see these increases, these massive, massive increases during times of so-called crisis. Again, it makes me think of back to the COVID days, right? And that's less than ideal, because the crisis was used to justify the bad policies that led to very bad outcomes during COVID. Here's trade, and so we'll do a little bit of trade stuff. Table Salt says, major breaking. The USA crushes Canada with 35% softwood lumber tariffs, more than double the number than from April. This only 2 days after Carney announced he would subsidize the Canadian lumber industry. They are moving rapidly now. So there seems to be some kind of response going on. Like, it seems to be Trump's looking and seeing what we're doing and then countering that. And economic force is what Trump said he would bring against Canada in order to bring Canada into the fold of the 51st state. And is this what that looks like? Maybe a little bit. But in addition to Trump having economic force applied to Canada, Mark Carney is not doing anything to respond, right? Like, opening up trade to Europe is not working. Opening up trade to Mexico, they got the door slammed in their face. Opening up the trade to ourselves, there's not enough volume. So Carney is left hat in hand to look at the United States. And every day Carney does nothing is another day Trump has more leverage, right? Trump's getting further up that leverage handle, and that just gives him the ability to apply less force and get a bigger movement, right? And so Trump, every day that Carney doesn't respond, every day that Carney behaves stupidly, and that's every day, Trump gets more strength, more ability to maneuver against Canada, and Canada gets more hardwired into the inevitability of doing whatever Trump wants. And like Carney says, "Oh yeah, elbows up, we're gonna save Canada." I never believed him, but when he doesn't respond to what's going on, he's handing leverage to Trump every day. So that's pretty wild, and we'll see how that all works out. Here is Danielle Smith, and she says that they're signing a big trade agreement with the Yukon. She says, by signing this trade agreement, both Yukon Premier Mike Pemberton and myself have committed to growing jobs and investments between our two provinces. We must continue to knock down trade barriers across Canada. So all of these things, I feel, don't give us enough detail about what the trade barriers being knocked down are specifically, and how that will impact the economy, like a 30% rise, a 40% rise. And I think that there's no real percent rise. There's just like a couple of niche giveaways here and there to keep people happy and talking about how, oh yeah, we're knocking down interprovincial trade barriers. Here's the article from August 4th. Alberta and Yukon Territory have signed a new deal to grow trade, jobs, and investment. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, and they signed the deal, blah, blah, blah. Canada's premiers are making it our collective goal to knock down the barriers that have been holding back our workers and our economies for too long. This agreement is the latest. The Memorandum of Understanding will help Alberta businesses sell more goods and services to the Yukon. It will also give Yukon-based companies access to Alberta's markets and investment opportunities. Do they not have access to the markets at all? Alberta looks forward to working with the Yukon. See, it doesn't give any details about what specific markets they're like. There's going to be a big trade deal with steel. We're going to do lots of steel trade with the Yukon. It doesn't really say that. So, what? Like, what do you think they're going to do? What do they think they're going to do? Right? Like milk? Are they going to trade milk? Is that it? Is the milk price in Yukon about to plummet because of Alberta milk? I doubt it, right? Like, Mark Carney he's got his finger on the pulse. He knows what Canadians are worried about. And so on August 8th at 9:30 p.m., he says, Nico wants to wish you all a happy International Cat Day. This is serious. I had to double check. I was like, is this Mark Carney for real? Like, this is Mark Carney? International Cat Day? Are you kidding me, sir? What in the heck? What are you talking about? And I said to my kids the other day, we were listening to the radio, and the one radio station, they were saying Happy International Pancake Day, and another radio station was like, it was Friendship Day. And I said, these people just make nonsense up in order to distract you from the important things that are going on in the world. I said, they talk about banal things. They talk about useless, pointless things on the radio, and they make crap up to distract you and to make you think about anything but that thing they're trying to distract you from. And the Prime Minister is engaging in exactly the same crap, and it's nonsense. Cat Day, sir, gosh, just step down. You're a disgrace. Dallas Brody is responding to what's going on with the Cowichan versus Canada decision with regards to the land and the land rights. And apparently the area is was a garbage dump, was like a created area that was made out of a garbage dump. And I thought, that's weird that there's this land claim on this one specific area. So it's a very, very strange thing. Dallas Brody is saying, obviously, we must appeal this case all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, but how do we prevent these types of decisions from recurring? Ultimately, this is not about one activist judge. This is about decades of judicial rulings implementing a racist, two-tiered constitutional framework that divides Indigenous and other Canadians. 1BC is the only party willing to confront the reality of that our Constitution must be amended. And 1BC says the government must appeal the Cowichan versus Canada decision and defend basic property rights of British Columbians all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada if they need to. Read this press release here. So yeah, I think that it's interesting. I'm glad that there are people taking this whole thing seriously. I think that it is very concerning that we've got activist judges ruling on property rights in a way that is going to impact lots of people, and they don't seem to care because they don't work for us. They work for the globalists who are bringing in this plan. And everybody seems to be aware of that, but nobody seems to be able to stop it. And that's unfortunate. And not just in Canada, all across the West as well. And with that, I've got to say goodbye to the stream. So thanks for watching, everybody.